I have to make a confession. My knowledge of Latvian is still poor. Of course, I can have a basic conversation. I can ask simple questions, provide extremely easy answers, maybe, order a beer, 100%, and put on a big dumb smile that gives the impression that I understand more than I actually do. But if I had to explain to somebody, for example, the intricate meaning of a song, the symbolism, and its deep analogies, I would probably give up. I would certainly give up. Such is the condition of a foreigner who's a bit too busy and maybe a bit too lazy like me. But sometimes we can take solace in ignorance, or even more. In a song whose the whole lyrics we don't understand, we can work with what we know. The pure aesthetics of the word is accessible to us. Its exotic sound together with the beat and the melody. We create and see new meaning, our meaning. Maybe distant from the one intended by the artist, of course, but still authentic. Somehow we travel back in time and we become children again, in that same situation where we didn't even know our own native language. I felt like that the other day when Robert, the drummer of the Latvian band Nova Coma, made me listen to one of their songs, Marcipans. Marcipans, I guess. Great song, available at the end of our conversation. Enjoy. So we met, I think, by chance. I think it was maybe Jaunateka 1 year ago, 1 year and a half, maybe, something like that.
I think it's definitely 1.5. I think it could be even 2 years ago. It was definitely before the pandemic because we were in the office, everyone.
Yeah, we didn't have a clue about what was going to happen, I think. And I think the way that we met is probably exemplar of how you work in a company, you take care of IT, and if I remember correctly, right?
I still do.
Perfect. And I remember that I was working there for a day, and you probably had to do with a classic panicky situation. Anybody that doesn't know how to solve a problem with a password, and I remember you were walking by, and you told me to maybe just relax for a second, try to do this and that, to just log in the internet. I remember, and probably that's not the first time that it happened to you. It happens to IT people, right? They have to deal with this.
The experience comes with the years, and as you move along, you probably anticipate the situations that you're going to happen, and that was one of those situations that I knew what I was going to do. It's mostly the more you work there, the more you realize that you are more convinced about yourself, about your capabilities. But sometimes these little things come along. When you get a message from the management, hey, we are all in this big meeting room. I've been in such a very big meeting rooms all by myself trying to fix the projector, when for the big boss that comes to present in the big meeting room, that puts that kind of level of the stress. So this was not the case where I had that stress. This was more of those things where you come in and you wipe a hand, or you just press one button and everything works.
It was more like bread and butter work, like every kind of easy stuff compared to the moment. And I can totally understand. I remember when I used to work there, sometimes there was the boss coming, and some people would have a big conference, right? I remember in a glass room. Yeah, and I understand the tension when you are probably the only person or one of the few people that can troubleshoot the problem. And if you don't succeed, the conference doesn't work. So I understand the tension with that. Absolutely.
That's called the second level support, because in that company we have the first level. You have the remote support where you need to reset the password, but then you need someone who can give the hands-on support, come and check the cables, press the buttons, do the physical activities to make the computer or projector or the printer or whatever that is inside that belongs to the IT actually work.
From the way that you talk about it, and the way that you talked to me when we first met in that situation, I would say that you kind of passionate about it, about what you do.
I would say I am passionate because of multiple factors, and I think the main factor that keeps me going is the people that surround me. If there would be the people, the different kind of moods that would not be so positive as they are in this office, my attitude would probably be different. But the people, the management, they are really friendly, they are open-minded, and that's what keeps the passion going. And I think that's also happening also in the different companies, but this is one of those cases.
I agree. The atmosphere in that class, there were a lot of jokes happening. I do remember there was a beautiful spirit in class, and there were so many people in the floor. I remember that. I presume maybe
that was before the pandemic, so we had around 200, I think, a little bit less than 200, which is really a lot, actually. I recall when I started working there, it was more than 7 years ago, which seems crazy from this point. We had even 2 floors. So we had the 7th floor, which we currently have, and then we had the additional 10th floor. And I was moving around 2 floors, going upstairs with an elevator, helping people, and there were different teams, and that spirit was still there, and that spirit also was there when you visited the office. So
I kind of got it. Yes, I got the atmosphere. There was this idea of facilitating things. Everybody was very available. And what a beautiful occasion also to find out what is it that actually the company was into. Like, I can't remember it now, but I remember there was a little glass box where you could see the products. I remember there was Nutella. Was Nutella one of them?
It was Nutella. So we produce also chemical ingredients for different kind of snacks and drinks. Nutella is one of those things.
Also toothpaste, possibly, no, as well?
Yeah, toothpaste, also chemical elements for the tires, for the back of the iPhone, that as well.
Crazy.
Probably some bits on your PC or on your mobile phone are also from Solvay.
Sometimes it happens that if you, like, not you, but hypothetically anybody, in this case me, you don't get really informed of the chemistry behind some products, you tend to categorize them in a very simplistic way. So, for example, I wouldn't think about Nutella and toothpaste in the same box, but I haven't thought of it in that way. But you see, so it kind of opened my eyes a bit with that. There was also another company dealing with carbon black, I think, in Mukusala, not too far from where you live. And I mean, I just get to forget often. I get to forget often how so many things you do with oil, from oil. I mean, like, apart from tires, there's so much stuff. In fact, sometimes it's easy to believe, oh, maybe the wars will be over as from the moment that we don't use combustion engine anymore. But we forget to understand that most of the stuff around us come from plastic and everything. But I guess this is a bit rhetoric, probably. But so you are calling from one of the, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful areas of Riga, which is big. But we had a chat, I think, after we met briefly on Messenger, and you had posted an old photo from Tornia accounts of that part of the area where you could still see before the construction of the National Library, right?
Exactly.
You could see.
You have those multiple bridges that cross the railway, because we have the railway station that goes to the city center, and once you cross the river, you are in Torņakalns, and you have the first station after the Riga Central Station. It's called Torņakalns, and you have these multiple bridges, and at that point, the railway splits into in a half. So one goes to Jelgava, one goes to Jūrmala, and you have 3 bridges that cross it, and from those bridges you can actually see the panoramic view of the old town before the National Library was built, and now you can see the full scale of National Library in front of the old town.
Yeah. But it feels like the advantage of living in a beautiful city like Riga, not too far from the center, really. But also at the same time with the possibility of having almost a countryside atmosphere, no? Like it's beautiful.
I was walking the other day and I heard chickens not far from where I live. So people have chickens.
Yes, absolutely.
And we used to have as well in my back garden. We used to have chickens and geese as well.
I'm not surprised, but not to consider the amount of cobblestone and the old depot. I think the tram depot or the church. The fact that it's slightly, I don't know how to say, rugged, so it's not totally flat. It's got this interesting. I went to a pub in the area once, but I don't remember. It was close to one of the bridges. It's still
Really,
there.
there was a pub? Because if that's the place, then it's I wouldn't call it necessarily a pub.
No, it's not a pub. You're right. You anticipated me. In fact, the atmosphere was a bit interesting inside. Well, how would you call it? A pub is not the right word. Maybe a bar. Maybe a bar.
A bar for a specific reasons.
For specific reason, maybe like dodgy stuff. Well, what I can say before I get into trouble, I can say that it was a very hot day, and I just got a. I think the beer was extremely cheap. I ended up by chance in it, and I drank it outside, just close to the terrace. I didn't drink it inside. But tell me more about the place. Tell me that I risked my life and I didn't notice.
Well, I'm not gonna give the name of that bar, but it's when you walk one of those bridges, and you will see that bar there. And usually the crowds that are by that bar are not the crowds you want to hang out with. I mean,
Yeah.
you might want to, if you have a specific purpose to have a specific drinks, then you can. But I usually just go bypass that bar, and there are actually two bars like those, and
really?
There's a second one, and we had a colleague who worked also in the same company who's living not far from one of those bars, and she told that there's been a history behind that. There's been some I think murders or something, or really big scandals going on. So for a foreigner to come there, I really would like to have a pub there. It would be really a good thing, but probably it doesn't really pay off, and the business keeps on going by maintaining those people who come and have a drink there. But actually, a bar is not that far away. We have a nice pizza place, which is not anymore in Tornekans, but it's like maybe 10 minutes walk from that bar which we were talking about. We have a really nice pizza place where my band also play a show, and if you want to have a beer, and that's a really nice place.
I was thinking, like, you reminded me, like, we started talking about this bar that we're not going to name, but it's the one close to the bridge. And but I was thinking like that there are a couple more places in Riga like that, probably more than a couple. And as a foreigner, you have a different approach. You try to absorb, you try to get everything. But what you're saying makes a lot of sense. It would be also stupid to hang around too long there. But as a foreigner, you don't throw anything away. Everything looks exotic and nice. Okay. Despite in Italy, we got the same idea, but our idea is not another country. So it feels totally interesting with that. However, I got the feeling, and I'm interested in what you think about it, and that I think the pandemic might have killed this. They might not be there once the pandemic is over.
They are.
But they
are actually thriving. They are thriving, and I think they are past grown the stage where pandemic might actually kill them. So they're long standing. They've been there since the 90s, and as long as there is a demand, there is an offer.
You're totally right. And also you're right, they're thriving. So they lower the lights sometimes and they're open. And there are some places in Pardaugava. I remember one was in Genibasgatve, maybe, but close to Robeja Yela, maybe, corner. This place, you probably know what I'm talking about. And from outside, it looked like a shop, like an old partika from outside. But inside, you could see that there were some chairs and tables put but it was almost masqueraded as a shop, like a little shop. On the other side of the city, I noticed, I don't know, do you remember that place, Buffet number 9 in Kalnin, close to Elizabeth, like where you could play Novus? Between the Maria, that one, for example, closed. Is similar. You could play Novus there. It looks like
It was quite cheap, but it had a weird atmosphere that we used to get a lot of people from the station. So you would see everybody would hang around in there, hipsters, people from the station, everybody. It was very interesting, but that one didn't survive. And what you're saying is very interesting. You're saying, Fabrizio, they already survived the pandemic so far, so I think they will be there once it's over, because that crowd, they're regulars, right?
They are regulars indeed.
They cannot be otherwise. They can only be regulars.
and when someone irregular comes in, probably the atmosphere gets strange, like it happened for you.
Yeah, no, but you see, I notice, I know what you're saying. We have them back home. That's why I drank the beer outside, pretty much. That's why. But and again, we can both agree that that area is beautiful. The place where it is beautiful.
The next to it is Arcadis Park. Is a really beautiful place. Even though when you look in the old pictures, it's hard to believe how did it look like less than 100 years ago. It's still, that park looks really beautiful. I have memories from my childhood when not far from that place, also in Tornekāns, we had a kindergarten, and the teachers used to take us there for a walk, and there was a stage up there, and we were playing around that stage back in the 90s.
So I have the pleasure to talk to someone that actually grew up in Tornekāns, right?
Yes, I've been living here since I was born.
That's the thing. I have the first time that I saw that place, I used to go and teach in Mukusala, and one day I took the tram, and I think it was, I don't know if it was 12 or whatever. So the tram would go from Mukusala, Bauskajela maybe. And it was winter, and it wasn't snowing, because I think 2018 wasn't too cold, the winter of 2018. I got a vague memory. And the tram was traveling through, I think, Tipografia Jela, maybe, something like that.
Yes, exactly. That's almost where I live.
You're a lucky man. That's a beautiful area, and peaceful and picturesque. And when I was in the tram, which I already like to be in the tram. I feel like almost, maybe it's not as comfortable as the bus, right? But it feels like I'm in a different situation, almost like in a time machine. I like that.
I mean, you don't have to, first of all, you don't have to sit in a traffic jams, because you have rails for that. Yeah. And also that rail line is one of the oldest tram lines in Riga. So I think it was there already in 1901 when we had the first electric tram. So that line went to that place where we had a depot. And later on, it was extended until Bishimuj. So that line is pretty famous, the 10th tram line. You even have a song for that. The famous Latvian band who play funny songs has a song about that tram line.
So we are in an interesting situation with Tornekāns, right? Because you had the chance, I think you are in your, I don't know, my friend, I don't want to say something wrong, but probably in your late 20s, maybe.
You are right.
I'm a lucky man. Anyway, so I was going to say in your late 40s. Anyway, Robert, so you grew up in Tornekāns, so you know those unperceivable changes or things that somebody else wouldn't notice. For example, you have the eye for it. And now we are in 2020, reading the news about the fact that they're gonna do something in the same area regarding Rail Baltica, I understand, no? There is a plan to possibly...
What I understood is they want to take down those old bridges, and they want to build newer ones. And there have been some big discussions whether that could be stopped, and the responsible persons could find a better way to keep the existing bridges. But I'm not sure how that would be possible. Maybe it would be possible. I'm not an expert on that, but two of those bridges are really old. They were one of the first concrete bridges built. I think it was built in 1910, and it has the same architecture as the style of architecture as the center buildings, the Nouveau Art buildings. You have the bridges in the same architecture style, so those bridges look really good. You can feel that they are old when you walk there during traffic jams, because the bridge is narrow and the place where people can go on sides is even narrower. So if they would rebuild the bridges and make them maybe a bit wider and more friendly for the cars, maybe that would be a positive thing. But would that be the same bridge? If they would do a replica of that, would that be the same thing? I don't really think so. So you have like two sides of the coin, really. And I'm not sure how will they going to carry on with that. But my personal preference would be that they would somehow find a solution to keep the existing bridges and also the streets that are next to this railway station, Indriche Street, in the same condition that they are, because the buildings there are really beautiful. And it's one of my places where I walk the most when I walk in Tornekāns.
I totally agree. I understand the dilemma also from probably the municipality trying to, possibly maybe locating as that track, like the part that is probably the only thing that they can consider. But if you consider Riga, which has a incredible, how do you call it, legacy of Art Nouveau, it has got an enviable amount of Jugendstil of Art Nouveau. So if those bridges are Art Nouveau, there's enough of a good reason not to demolish them. And also, if we move from Rail Baltica and to Tornekāns again, when I walk there, I see what they did maybe with Mieriela. I see what they did maybe with Agenskans. There is a way to preserve it without spoiling it. There must be a way, right?
I think it's a question of time, money, resources, and the willpower of doing that.
I would say it looks like a safe area, apart from those bars that we're talking about.
I mean, all of those. I mean, I've had there's a site actually called Zudusi Latvia, where you can look up the old pictures from different kinds of places sent by all people in Latvia who have some old photos, who scan them and send them. And then they are stored electronically and available publicly for people to see and view. And I really like to spend my time in that place when I want to see some older pictures, and probably you would do too. That's where I found the picture that I sent you, which was the view of the city in 1935. But if you look in the last 20 years, I mean, there have been some changes, but not that many. I mean, the cobblestone streets are the same, the buildings are the same. Overall, I would say the changes have not been that specific. Maybe, okay, yes, there were in my kindergarten, which was next to one factory, we had more factories which were already demolished and burned in the 90s. I remember as a kid being surrounded by these factory walls. I had a nice kindergarten, nice park, and then I had the big walls around me. And nowadays, that factory, which was a textile factory next to Vienības Gatve and Altonova Street, isn't there anymore.
Do you belong to a generation that used to trespass abandoned buildings when you were younger and eventually?
We were not allowed, and I think we had a good fence. And I mean, in the teenage years, it would definitely happen. But when we were kids, I mean, that didn't really happen. We had plenty of space where we could play outside. It was a really nice and sandy place because that place is basically built on the sand dunes, and you dig a little bit with a shovel and you get white sand coming out of the ground.
Oh, come on, but I totally understand. But were you not tempted by the adventurous, like haunted, abandoned factory to go in with your friends? And
I think it was demolished before I reached that age, so it definitely happened. And I understand your point. And when I traveled to Berlin, we went to this kind of abandoned place, which gives us the creeps and so on. But for I haven't been to that many abandoned buildings that I live here, but most of them, a lot of them aren't there actually. So if I would say the biggest changes over the last 20 years that have happened in Tornekāns is that some of the factory buildings aren't there anymore.
It's like you would have done it, but it feels like at the time where you were ready to do it, probably there was no such possibility. I understand what you mean, but the spirit was there. It's something common to many teenagers, right? That will of wanted to And,
I was in such a place in the old abandoned factory once. Next to my home was a factory built in the 19th century, and it was already abandoned. And we went inside, and you walk in a staircase, and you see a part of the staircase is missing, and you have to get to the upper side of to get to the next floor. I mean, you have that kind of adventurous feeling to cross it.
My goodness, we had like this abandoned brutalist theaters in south of Italy, like brutalist, like all concrete. You definitely know this style, and you probably into architecture. And they were abandoned because sometimes it was just an excuse to make money to make a building, but they wouldn't use it. So there were these empty ramps for the lifts that you could look in it, and you look so scary. You will see this like 15th floor from the theater, all in the dark, and there were stories of hobos sleeping there, and we were younger, and we thought the hobos they wanted to kill us, and it was really scary. There were syringes around because at the time, in the 90s, late 90s, there was a lot of heroin in Italy in that time, and so it was almost like a pandemic. Not everybody, clearly, but heroin was the drug in the street, and there were syringes sticking up. Like, it was awful. And but it was awful, but for us it was pure adventure, also because we were not using mobile phones at the time, so it makes sense. We were trying to look for adventure outside. Let me ask you a question. Let's move to, I'm really interested in this because I know that you're part of a band and you play the drums in it, I understand.
I do, yes.
Pink Fluid, which is super cool, even the title and the name of the band, and the style of the music made me think a bit about, as I told you, Blue Oyster Cult. I know that probably you don't like comparison, like many people that have something very specific in their mind, but progressive rock, a bit, what's the word, Robert? I don't want to say visionary. I want to say psychedelic. That's the one. Yes.
The band members who wrote that song are two guys who are basically the core of the band, and I am just a guest musician in that band who play the drum lines.
Fair enough.
So, if to answer your question, there is no relation with Tornicons and Pink Fluids. That name was, I mean, as my band member told me, you can see that this band was originally built as not to be taken seriously, hence the name. In the beginning, there were just two guys writing songs for fun, and then they started showing these songs to their friends, in the birthday parties, whatsoever. And other people say, "Hey, these are really nice songs. You should do something with them." And eventually, they started working on those songs, and they needed some guest musicians who could play instruments, and they invited a different kind of people, but mostly the band where I'm playing in played the instruments, and that's what made the album.
Would it be fair to say, I don't know, I'm probably going to say something totally wrong, but would it be fair to say that I was listening to the drums because I was going to talk to you. I think one of the songs that I was listening to was Wizard Song, yes. And I was listening to it, and in my kind of general knowledge of music, I like to listen to many. I don't really care. I like all sorts. And I kind of felt some sort of metal undertone in your drums a bit.
Metal undertone? You mean like a style of the metal music, or a sound of the metal?
Yes.
And the idea of this song came from the guitarist who had who was heavily influenced by the album Led Zeppelin 3. So basically, when you hear Led Zeppelin 3, when you hear Led Zeppelin, this is his original intention. So when I came to sit by those drums, the first thing that came to my mind was John Bonham, the drummer from Led Zeppelin, which is one of my biggest influences when I play rock music. When you search for the drummers in rock music, John Bonham is one of the best known drummers of all time. I'm a heavy hitter on drums, but you have to know when to hit heavy and when to play soft, because there are songs when you hear on that album and on different albums for my other band where you just cannot play hard. You have to play slow, and you know how to do it. If you cannot play slow and play soft, I wouldn't say that you're a great musician.
I would say I would agree, and from just a listener point of view, and I would say it's interesting to see is like, you know, everybody has this idea of genres being connected with each other and you know, being overlapping with each other. And I somehow, when I was listening to the color of the sound, like you were saying, I was hitting hard, but it sounded like almost like the style of a, and I'm going to say the style of a, like a metal epic ballad almost, you know, like you know, like those maybe slow epic metal songs where you got that kind of rhythm or whatever. But at the end of the day, I think you solve it by talking about Led Zeppelin. You kind of tie it up, because otherwise I go everywhere and nowhere. Yeah,
it's an interesting take to hear other people's opinions. So your opinion is, I mean, it's really interesting to hear that someone hears metal in that. So that's something to think about.
And it's also, it could be the limited amount of metal that I listen to in my life, because I think that I don't have a lot of, I've never been
But if we talk about, then we usually try to avoid the concept of metal, at least, because one of the things is associated with playing metal, especially for drummers, they like to play double bass, you know, really fast bass. And that is what we try to avoid here. I play also heavier songs with as a guest musician for some other people. And I try to do it with a single pedal. It's easier for me, and I don't have the money to buy a double pedal. I don't want to play double bass.
All right. Well, I have to say, despite the, how can I say, the fact that it sounds like something that probably is not, but it's amazing because it really feels very dense. The sound is very dense. The choirs, progressive. There is so much. There are so many elements in it, and but they tie up very well.
And you will probably never going to hear those songs being played live because of the complexity they have. I know, because of all the choirs, because of all the guitarists, we would need to have multiple guitar players on the different tuning levels. That album took around more than 1 year to record and being completed, because I recorded drums in the November of 2020, and they finished mixing it in early November when they recorded the final things.
It's just it's nice to, like, I was listening from in Spotify, and I felt like there's something that I like about this genre, because I had previously touched on Blue Oyster Cult, and all of a sudden it has this. It's a beautiful genre because it feels like it embraces different ones altogether. So your mind is already kind of drifting away on the side of, there's something metally about this, but not quite. Then you move to hard rock, then you have a bit of that. And listening.
You know, one of the biggest influences for the guitarist who was also a contributor for these songs was a band Ween. And the style that they play, when you hear that band, the first question you ask yourself is, oh, you can actually do that, because that band can play heavy metal at one point, the soft ballad, and the next point, then a country song. They have such a wide spectrum of music. And when they gathered to write songs as demos, they would consider each idea as a worthy idea. They would not throw ideas away. They would say, regardless how stupid this sounds, we're going to keep working on it until we have something from it. And that's what they did. They didn't throw any ideas. They welcomed everyone's ideas. And in the end, this is what made the album so different.
Yeah. And you kind of saying that, you make me think about the guitar in that Wizard song. There is a guitar which is kind of like, you know, when you listen to music, sometimes you have your brain is trying to anticipate what you're going to listen to, because you've listened to a lot of songs, so it does it even if you don't want to. So that's the way that you somehow you get surprised about the new melody, or you think that you had a deja vu. And the guitar in that song at the beginning has a certain amount of creativity, but it's also very well balanced. It doesn't go far away. So and that's exactly what you were trying to say, I think, earlier, when saying it's not a musician, the person that maybe doesn't have that kind of sense of balance, of like knowing what is the speed of how much you can add, how much you can take away. We were, like, for example, I play the piano a bit, but I don't call like to a level that is not. I say I play it because it would be wrong to say that I don't play it. That's the only reason why I say that. But we used to go to the recording studio just to rent it, to have fun. With my friend William, that was the a heavy metal drummer, so he wanted to have fun in it. He would just get the drums. He didn't have drums in the house. But at some point, every time that we play something that it wasn't metal, he would try to adapt and work in a small window and put as much as creativity as he wanted, but by respecting the whole idea. And I think that's a musician over there, because you know that you don't have to be a virtuoso just for the sake of it. There is a balance. I think a musician has to have balance. That idea of a Beatles song is perfect because of that, I think. And or a Neil Young, or so. Yeah, you're totally right. You can be direct and straightforward. If you don't have that, you're not a musician. You might be very good. Maybe you know how to do everything with the drums, but you cannot function in a band.
I think what is really important, from my perspective, is ability to collaborate with others. Let's say, for example, in this case, for this specific album which was released, many of the drum parts were already thought out by the guitarist who knows how to play drums. So he played the drum parts in. So when I came in to do a recording, of course, I added some of my ideas. When you hear, for example, a Wizard song, that was mainly on my idea. But some other songs, when you hear in that album, were as close as they were in the demos. So I like to keep that original idea alive and not take it too far away as the musician has intended, the songwriter has intended.
Like a professional.
I try to be, I try to record drums fast, so we don't have to do many takes. I try to do as soon as possible. We recorded all of those songs, the drum parts, in a little bit more than 2 days. It took a little bit more than 2 days, so it was. I consider that to be fast.
I see what you mean. So the way that you talk about you playing the drums, I get the feeling that you collaborate with different bands, or what's this?
So I started out playing with my band, my primary band. So Pink Floyds was just a side project for just these songs. Maybe some more songs will come, but Pink Floyds was a side project. The main band where I started playing is Nova Coma. We play songs in Latvian, and we have the people who come to our shows, especially in Riga lately, more and more, even during the pandemic. So that was my initial band where I started playing. As you move along, people are asking, hey, I'm doing this recording session. Do you want to come and play drums for this idea? You show up, you say that, yes, I will be there. You show up, you come with your idea. And if that person likes it, then you basically spread your information to them that, hey, I can play drums and I'm open to record if you have any ideas. And basically, this is what is slowly starting to happen, that people from different bands who are eventually still friends of my band, not some complete strangers from elsewhere, are asking for my assistance. So basically, we have this inner circle of friends, artists, and musicians who want to make something occasionally, and then I'm open to give my idea to record the drums for their idea of the song.
It sounds like everything but boring. Sounds like fun. And also
it is really fun because you never know what you're going to expect. So this Sunday, I'm going to do a second session for this heavier music. So Last time I just went and did a take, and I really enjoyed it, and I did not know what I was going to play, and eventually that made a really good demo of the song.
And also, what is the? You said you were talking about the other band that the other band, not Pink Floyd.
My main band, my bread and my butter.
What's the name of the band?
Nova Coma.
Nova Coma, and
yes.
What is your contribution to it? Do you think about also the themes, the lyrics, the drums? Clearly, is there something more that involves you more personally? What do you do with it?
I mainly it's the drumming. I don't do any vocals. I could learn to play a guitar if I wanted to, but my passion of my life is drums, so I bring percussion and drumming to that band as well.
So you propose also the skeleton of the song, maybe through jamming. You jam together, right? You still jam?
Yeah. We are doing jams, and in fact, before I came to this podcast with you this evening, we had a jam in our studio. We had a rehearsal and we jammed, and it was so much fun.
How important it is to keep, like, look, this podcast, I mean, probably this one is the 8th episode. It came out of the pandemic in the sense that of course you've been creative, you've been doing drums, you've been hitting the drums before the pandemic, but in this period it really feels like even more important to hit that chord or that vein, right? Maybe
I think when you listen to the last album, I think yes. I know that some people spotted this, and I feel it as well. There is this sense of tension for our last album, Nova Coma album, that we released in November, which is called Es neesmu dusmīgs, or to say in English, I am not angry. And when you listen to it, it's about, well, of course, it's about the relationships. But when you hear it, I think the impact of the pandemic and the fact that we were not allowed to participate in concerts so often, and sometimes during the lockdowns, not even attend for rehearsals, had its impact on this feeling of attention.
It reflects in the music, right? Like some sort of, this atmosphere, the pandemic, all the tension reflects in the music almost like inevitably.
Well, I can tell you a little side story, but it goes in relation to what you are saying for the pandemic. So we released an album in 2020 in September, and we were planning to do some shows. And in the end, we did only one, but we were not even sure if that show is going to happen because it was just before the second lockdown started. It was in October when the cases were going up and everything was starting to get closed. And we did that show, but those songs are not that kind of songs where you sit on a chair and do nothing. But by the rules, people were forced to wear masks in our concert, which is a good thing. I support that, but they were also not allowed to move. They had to sit. So we played a really powerful and aggressive concert, which is available for you to see also on YouTube. Yes, a 43 minutes long concert. It was an album presentation concert. And right after that, everything was closed up until we had another opportunity to play a concert last summer. In the middle of July, it was super hot. We did a show, and you could feel that people were really thirsty for a concert. They came, did the mosh pits, and they were jumping around. And we felt like we really missed that crowd, that live connection with people.
Yes,
that feeling of playing live is just something else. To be able to reflect that energy, sometimes when we do a really great shows, afterwards, for an hour or two, I have this noise in my ears. When I come home, I cannot just go to sleep because there is this super amount of energy that has been transmitted to people, but it's still there and also received from people. Of
course.
You cannot fully describe that. You have to feel it to understand.
I'm not going to say it makes a lot of sense what you're saying, and that's the reason. I think from a spectator point of view, I can understand. That's the only way that I can understand it. From the other side, as someone that will go to your concerts, There is a live experience that totally. You see, I don't even know how to explain them. Like sometimes they become addictive. You cannot. Sometimes a song is different when it's recorded in the studio, clearly, and some songs are better when recorded than live. But sometimes the live is so good that somehow you cannot go back to the recorded version anymore. It can happen. As a listener, I mean,
indeed it is true. But for the last album, what we did, we recorded the initial instruments, drums, bass, and guitars, basic guitars, rhythm guitars, in one room in one take, and then added instruments on top if needed. But the main song structure and recording was in one room, all of us. So you get that live feeling.
It is I see what you mean. Okay. Recently I was listening to a band that I really like, which is The War on Drugs. And I don't know if you're familiar. Yeah.
I like that band. Really good band.
Oh yeah. And there is something so exciting about what they do. They change their songs in the live version. We're not talking just acoustic or not. We're talking about changing. They put in a piano instead of a guitar, and instead of a leading guitar, just put in the piano at the beginning. There is a degree of creativity that almost enhances the power of the song in an endless way. Because even the last album, I don't know. I think the name, I don't know. I Don't Live Here Anymore. Probably you listen to it. Something or it just came out of this.
Probably that. Yeah.
But anyway, it's the same thing. They've done it before. And they take one song, which is already incredibly beautiful, so many elements, sax, progs, but then in another live, they totally change it. But they change it in a way that is always very concerned about, they almost create another song. Totally. Like they don't just put in acoustic or whatever. They just create another song. They mix. That's quite nice, I have to say. So, but what you were saying is,
because usually when people think about our band, they think how we perform live. Because we are a live band, that's where we thrive the most, and we wanted to take this element of live music and put it into an album.
Anything that we might say, we might plug for the band, even if I don't have too many listeners, but even for my own interest, is there a concert happening or any sort of gig happening soon, or is there anything that you want?
Well, right now it is a little bit difficult to, first of all, have a concert with all these Greek alphabet letters attacking us. But another thing is, it's a bit difficult to find a place where to play, because, especially in winter. In summer, it's a little bit different because we played 3 shows last summer season. 2 of them were outdoors. And the third one was indoors, but that was before the cases started going up. So it's a bit difficult to find a place to play right now. We would like to, but we are looking into it. But as the time goes by, we actually have quite a lot of things to do, so I cannot promise you concert. But when that will happen, I would like you to.
Well, I'm coming, definitely. And also, well, clearly there is YouTube available. The name of the band again is
Nova Coma. Thank you, Fabrizio. I mean, when we would be allowed to go outside or to a concert, to go a pub, I would love to have this kind of talk in person, on real life, with a cup of a beer.
Can't wait to buy you beer. Thank you, Robert. I'll see you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fabrizio. Have a good evening. Bye.
izziņām. Esmu kļuvis mīgs kā marcipāns, esmu miris vismaz tā liekas, katrs solis man ir